name. My maiden name is Biddulph. What a complicated last name. Nobody ever understood it. I always had to spell it and kind of help people to figure it out. So when I got to college, the name Lisa was suddenly a very popular name. There were 8 Lisas in my freshman class in college. And so we all had to become Lisa H, Lisa G, Lisa B. So I was Lisa B. That was my name. That's how everybody called me. There were 3 Lisas on my hall. And so, there was one telephone, payphone at the end of the hall. Kids, this is life how it used to be. And I would go to the end of the hall, Lisa B, telephone, run down to the end of the hall and answer the phone. But I was with a friend in science class, and she grabbed my notebook, and she wrote this in my notebook on the first page. To lease a bee. And I thought, oh, that's interesting. I've never thought about my name that way before. Lease, to rent, to pay for something that you use temporarily, to lease a bee. But talking about that with John, he said, you kind of were like a bee. What is a bee? A little busy bee, always buzzing, always doing, always, moving. And that really was me. I mean, it is me, but it was me, especially back then. So I see a little bit of my history, but I also see a little bit of my foreshadowing, because since the pandemic, I've been especially called or curious about being. What is being? Who am I, really? If I separate out what I do, which is a lot, but if I separate out what I do, who am I? Lisa B. So then Lisa B becomes me, being. We are human beings. We are not human doings. Otherwise, we'd be called human doings, right? So at the end of the service today, we're going to have a few minutes to be. And the purpose of that is to give some space, some silence, so that you can reflect on what really stood out to you during this message today. A time to respond to that, as we do in Godly Play. I was with Natalie and Gianfranco for the last 3 weeks at the arrival of their new little baby. There you see Amelia on the right and Cyrus on the left, who's now 5 months old. A baby has a wonderful way of connecting with us through being. Think about it. What does a baby do? Nothing. Cries and sleeps, but what does a baby do for me? Nothing. I'm not getting a favor from my baby, but I enjoy that baby. Natalie has been in a group studying the Enneagram. I don't know how many of you are familiar with that, but it's like a personality study. And she's been learning about that. And here's one thing I learned as I talked with her. She had a book. It says, as we develop personality structure in early childhood, we gradually lose contact with our being. So even our personality can be a distraction from who we are inside. Who are you? Who am I? We are human beings, not human doings. Being a grandma for the past 5 months has really helped me to get connected with this idea of being. We connect with a baby based on their vulnerability, based on their instincts or their responses or their little personality developing. If you want to see a video, ask me at the end of the service, and I'm happy to show you more pictures or a video. But as human beings, we uniquely bring together a physical nature and a spiritual nature. All created beings are physical. Animals, trees, flowers. We are physical. But we also have a spiritual nature. That's how God designed us. And so being is the practice of putting those two things together. We are not only physical. We are not only spiritual. That would be angels. We are both. And so our spirituality is the practice of learning to bring those parts of us together. To learn, here's what a guy called Christopher West says. Our body is the part of us that lives in the present moment. We're all here today, right now. Physically, we are here. Mentally or spiritually or emotionally, we could be in all kinds of different places, right? We could be in our past. We can be in our future. We can be preoccupied with something, but our body is here. And I think as Christians, we've learned to ignore our bodies. We've learned to just not pay attention to that. And that's been part of my practice in the last few years, is learning to listen to my body. If I'm sick, what is my body telling me? If I have a headache, what is my body telling me about me? About the me that goes beyond just my body. We also don't want to ignore our spirit. So don't ignore your body. Listen to your body, but also don't ignore your spirit. It's necessary to explore and to develop this part of ourselves as well. Our spirituality then is about being. And our spirituality is not a product. We don't ever arrive. We're always in the process. And God uses anything that happens in our lives to help us dig down and listen to that part of ourselves. It's subtle. It's elusive. I like to say that we have 5 facets as human beings in the spiritual, and it's this one. Well, it's easy to forget that part. This is the spiritual part of us is the part that calls out for our attention the least. If you don't eat, you get hungry physically, right? But what about spiritually? Do we get hungry spiritually? It's a little easier to ignore that spiritual hunger than it is our physical hunger. So without intentionality, we can miss our spirituality altogether. Look at our stained glass, our famous stained glass. Jesus is there, knocking on the door, always ready. Revelation 3:20 says, "Look at me. I stand at the door. I knock. If you hear me call and open the door, I'll come right in and sit down to supper with you." He's saying, I will be with you. He's not talking about doing. He's talking about being. And then the next verse says, are your ears awake? Listen. Listen to the wind words, the Spirit blowing through the churches. That's spirituality. Waking up our ears. Listening. Now, I love choosing a year verse. That's been a practice that my mom taught me when I was a kid. And I've kind of been doing it for my whole life. And I think I could probably tell the story of my life through the year verses that I've chosen. I have a list of all the verses that I've chosen for I don't know how many years, but a long time. One year had been especially dark and difficult, just a lot of struggle and a lot of doubt and a lot of issues in my life, in my family, and in my life. And so that next year, I chose the following verse. You, Lord, keep my lamp burning. My God turns my darkness into light. Psalm 18:28. This is what cultivating spirituality is. It's putting my hope and my help outside myself, realizing I can't do it myself. I can't find help for this problem by myself. I need someone else. I need to be intentional about that. My God turns my darkness into light. Now, I'm a doer. As I observe my life over these past almost 20 years in Uruguay, I see that my way of responding to stress, to frustration, to disappointment, even to anger,
was to get busy. There's a lot to do. There's always a lot to do. I was living in a new country. I had a husband and 3 kids and school and church and home, and I could always be busy. And so I got busy. I did a lot. But you know what? It didn't make the stress or the frustration, the disappointment, or the anger go away. It just shoved it under the carpet so that it would come up at another moment when I was least expecting it. Doing is meant to overflow from our being, not disguise it, not cover it up, not be the rug that we put on top of all that stuff going on inside. Doing is meant to overflow from our being. When that is not happening, when our doing doesn't flow from our being, we don't have a very ideal result. And that's what was going on in my life. I was getting a lot done. I was involved in a lot of things, but I was losing what was most valuable to me. I was losing my own peace. I was losing my relationships with my husband, with my kids. I was starting to just be annoyed at them all the time. Why are they interrupting me? I have stuff to do, And I was thinking, wow, what's going on? I was gaining the world, but losing my soul. That was my experience. And God turned my darkness into light. So I learned, as a result, to reflect on my doing as a way of understanding my being. So this year, I chose a year verse to guide me in this process of being. And it's a little bit inspired by my grandchildren because it says, "My heart is not proud, Lord. My eyes are not haughty. I do not concern myself with great matters or things too wonderful for me." I'm not trying to do too much. But I have calmed and quieted myself. I am like a weaned child with its mother, like my 2 grandbabies. Like a weaned child, I am content. Lisa, put your hope in the Lord, both now and forevermore. That's putting my hope and my help beyond myself. That's cultivating my spirituality. Children, babies, old age, health issues are God's way of slowing us down, are God's way of helping us to notice what's going on inside. My grandchildren have helped me to practice this. Natalie would wake up at 4 a.m. to feed her baby, and I got up and was with her. Babies have helped me to practice and to value just being. I've left Uruguay lots of times. I'm not used to doing that. I'm used to being here and being very involved here. And every time I've left, it's just felt like, oh, this is so weird. What am I doing? I'm gone again. And I'm gone to a place where I don't have any job. And so I've been able to practice being. To love is to be. Have you ever thought about that? To love is to be. What do we do with a baby? We hold the baby. We watch the baby. We enjoy the baby. The baby is just being, not doing. Now, many of you young people are hoping or praying to find someone with whom to spend the rest of your life. I'm praying for you. I do pray for all of you guys. I want to encourage you, though, to take this time to be intentional while you're alone, to become the kind of person that you want to be attracted to you. What kind of person are you looking for? Well, what do you need to become that kind of person so that that kind of person will be attracted to you? This is an important part of being for you, an important time for being. Do you remember being a kid And everybody asks you the question, well, what do you want to be when you grow up? Think about that. What are they really asking? One of my favorite books is called The Boy, the Mole, the Fox, and the Horse. And the mole asks the boy, what are you going to be? What do you want to be when you grow up? And the boy answers, kind. Isn't that precious? What about you? What do you want to become? Okay, we're talking about being, and that's good, but doing is important, right? John told us last week, work is good. Work is hard, but work is restorative. Work gives us a sense of purpose and identity, and that is great. Our world would be a big mess if nobody did any work, right? So I'm not talking about not working. I'm just talking about, where does our work come from? Where does it flow from? When our doing doesn't overflow from our being, the result is less than ideal. Pete Scazzaro says, what we do is important, but who we are is more important still. What we do in terms of our attitudes, our reactions, our responses comes out of who we are. This is why God wants to transform our hearts. 2 weeks ago, Nate was talking to us about God's purpose to renew us. That's transforming our hearts. That's giving us a new way to live the same life that we're living. Sometimes we can see what we want to change on the outside. We can see it externally. Part of changing that is habit and discipline. That's true. But really, the real transformation comes internally from our heart. Jesus knew that. And he said, nothing outside a person can defile them by going into them. Rather, it is what comes out of a person that defiles them. Jesus is saying, notice your life. Notice what your life looks like. Because what comes out shows us what's inside. This is spiritual growth. To notice, to desire change, to be intentional in seeking change. Jesus is inviting us in this verse and with his life. He's inviting us to a deeper life where we are connected to ourselves, connected to God, connected to each other. How connected do you feel to the people that matter most in your life? Jesus invites us to a balanced life, just like his, where his doing came out of his being. Remember last week, John gave you these circles to evaluate the balance of your life. How much of what you do is coming out of who you are? If you generally feel that you are too busy, that you don't have enough hours in the day, that you're feeling like you're running around like crazy, is that the way you want to live? Is that really the only way you can live? And so, Jesus invites us to that deeper and balanced life through a transformation. And we all need a transformation. Why? Because we live in our bodies here in this world, and we're very heavily influenced by the things around us. In Western culture, we're very, very influenced by by all the ads and all of the social media and all of the messages that they're sending us, like this one. Just do it. That's about doing. Nike, just do it. Home Depot, where the doers get more done. What's the value? The value is in doing. Get it done. Do it. How about this guy? You know who that is? The Energizer Bunny, where the most important thing is that you can keep going and going and going. Is that really what's most important? Is that really what we want? How about this one? Do what you love what you do. Where's being in that? Maybe we could find it. But the message, the overt message, is about doing, right? George Bernard Shaw famously said 100 years ago, doing what needs to be done may not make you happy, but it will make you great. You could hear that a couple of different ways, but basically, if you want to be somebody important, do something, right? We need transformation. We're also heavily influenced by our families of origin, where we grew up and what the way we grew up is. And I grew up with wonderful parents. My parents got a lot done in their life. I admire them. I love them very much. They're wonderful people. They went to Colombia as missionaries, and they had a job to do. They had a calling. They had a responsibility. And they worked really, really, really hard all the time. And they lived by a motto that was, work as if everything depends on you, and pray as if everything depends on God. That's a great motto, because we do need to depend on God. We need God to do we are working with God, right? But in that sense, even prayer was something to do. And so I grew up, the impact of my parents on my life was, the message is, get going, get busy, be a bee. Keep it going, keep it going, keep it going. There's always something to do. You always have to get it done, get it done. There's more to do. This is a big job. We have a big responsibility. And so I understand myself a little bit better in the light of that upbringing. My sister, when she and her husband were 43, her husband died suddenly. She entered a long, hard grief process in which she repainted her house, reupholstered her furniture, replaced the flooring in her house, and did gardening almost every day, a lot. Her counselor said to her at one point, wisely, I think you process your grief by doing. So, doing is in my DNA. I just am that way. No wonder when I get stressed or frustrated, I just get busy. Godly play for me has been part of my relearning process. Godly play was my introduction to contemplative spirituality. In godly play, we say things like, there is enough time for everything. We're not in a hurry. Or, trust the process. Or, silence is a language. Silence is God's language. We can learn something from everyone. These are all very deep thoughts that really helped me to slow down and consider. I think each of us is here today because we're interested in drawing close to God, in understanding what spirituality is, in knowing God a bit more. And Jesus knew that about his followers. The people who followed him had some kind of spiritual interest. And Jesus said once, whoever welcomes one of these little children in my name welcomes me. And whoever welcomes me does not welcome me, but the one who sent me. So if we want to know God and welcome him into our lives, let's learn to receive and to welcome little children. Children are experts at being. Have you ever thought about that? Playing is being. They don't have layers like we do. They don't have expectations or obligations or self-importance or conscience even when they start out, my little baby grandchildren. There's so much to learn about ourselves as we are in contact with children. Remember the quote at the beginning, as we develop a personality structure in early childhood, we gradually lose contact with our being. The same author goes on to say, by the time our psychological structure is solidified, Our contact with the depth of ourselves, what makes life rich and full and meaningful, our deepest nature, is largely lost due to consciousness. As soon as we become aware of what other people are thinking or of who we are or what we ought to do, or we're losing contact with the deepest part of ourselves. So I invite us all to be just like my grandbabies, just like my pets. Pets are another part of life that just is. They just are. My turtle and my dog, they are the transmitters of God's peace to me. They're my constant reminders to be, because that's all they are. They just are. And we love them for that. We take pictures of them because they are, right? That's what we need. And so to be, we need a transformation. And this transformation is how we as Christian people are designed to make a difference in the world. Not by doing, but by being. And that's really countercultural. That's really being countercultural. Mahatma Gandhi famously said, "Be the change you want to see in the world." And I put this quote in this message, and then I heard it. Be the change. It doesn't say do the change or make the change. It says be the change you want to see. Can I live my life with hope? Can I befriend someone who's been rejected? Can I respond gently to anger? Can I manage anxiety, my own or someone else's? Can I be present with myself or with others? Someone I asked shared her secret to being. She said, "For me to be is just that. No words, just sitting alongside someone who is sad or confused or hurting. Really, there are no words. So I pray for peace, some kind of understanding and acceptance. I try to be there for that person. God is there, so I can be by listening for his guidance and the peace that surpasses all understanding." And so how? How can we change? And we'll finish with this. Community. Community. Get with other people. We are designed to live in community, to be with others who want the same goals. Talk about it. Share your struggles, doubts, questions. Listen to other people. Pray together. Connection. Think. Consider. Link. Get in touch with spiritual thinking about practical life through new ideas. We have lots of books to recommend. Here we go. Connection. Lots of books to recommend. We have the Alpha course going on right now. After the service is the Alpha course. Other courses are coming. Emotionally healthy spirituality, the marriage course. Everything we offer here at Christ Church is to help you be, to help you grow and deepen as the you that God created you to be. We have 4 Bible study groups that are finishing right now, a 30-week study on the book of John. If you're one of the finishers, congratulations. That's been a long study and a very enriching one. We start a new one on August 7, so we hope you don't miss it. Thirdly, intention. Stop, reflect, and rest. Consider your life. Take time. How much time do you need? I don't know. You know. How much time do you need to really stop and reflect, considering your life? Think about God. His name for himself is I am. That's what Sabbath is for. Sundays are designed to be a Sabbath. One whole day, every single week, for us to stop and rest and reflect and think about the connections. How am I doing? How are my relationships? How am I? On the seventh day, God had finished the work he had been doing, and so he rested from all his work. Then God blessed the seventh day and made it holy because he rested from all the work of creating that he had done. Last year verse of mine that I want to share with you is from Isaiah 30. This is what the sovereign Lord, the Holy One of Israel, says. In repentance and rest is your salvation. In quietness and trust is your strength. And I used to leave the verse right there. But it goes on to say in that same verse, but you would have none of it. Repentance, rest, quietness, trust. For years, I couldn't get it. I couldn't physically. I would have none of it. I wasn't able to think about my life in that way. I wasn't able to stop and reflect. I didn't think I should. I didn't think I could. But community and connection and reflection helped me to be able to understand a new dimension of life that I was completely missing out on. Repentance, rest, quietness, trust. And now I can be a little bit more. I'm still working on it, but I'm so grateful. I'm so grateful for the changes that have happened in my life. And my kids are too. And you can ask John if he is. I think he is too. I'm a different person as a result of being and allowing my doing to come out of that. So my name is Lisa B, not Lisa B. And I want to finish now with a minute of silence. And during that minute of silence, I invite you to just receive all of these words that I've said and stories that I've told and things, verses. What stands out to you the most? What is it that your soul needs to take the next step?